Yes.
That's good. Yeah.
How are you? Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Sorry, it was just not. I couldn't find the passcode wasn't working, so that's. But that's fine. Good.
Okay,
Can you
good.
hear me? All right.
I can hear you all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. No. All good. All good.
Awesome. Happy New Year.
You too. Yeah.
No. Do you
How
have a good
was it?
time? I was home with COVID, so I didn't do much.
Oh no. God. Everyone who I, well, a lot of people who I know have actually had it. So over Christmas as well. So it's not been, yeah, it's not been an ideal time for some. Have you had it badly or?
I had like properly 2 weeks. I couldn't do anything. No energy, muscle aches, all the
Yeah.
symptoms. So loss of taste, loss of smell.
Yeah.
But the low energy was incredible for 2 weeks. I would like go up the stairs and get dizzy.
That's not good. No.
No, no. Well, how's the dog?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's another story. Yeah. So Christmas was spent. Well, no, Christmas was it Christmas Day or the day after? She was in the vets overnight. Yeah, for 28 hours or something.
Oh my God.
She's recovered from that, but she's fine. But then this morning I was up again at 3 because she'd managed to get hold of. We took something out the freezer for tonight's meal,
Yeah.
and it was defrosting, and it was right at the back in the kitchen. She got hold of it again.
Oh my God.
This time it wasn't. This time it was fine for her to eat, but she ate a hell of a lot of it. So I think she's been lying there bloated and then sort of sort of diarrhea as well. So I think she's just had too much.
How
So
old is she?
she's only we're in January, so 11 months.
Hmm. She's
Um,
she's a very curious dog.
oh
She wants.
God, yeah. I mean, I was threatening to put her in her crate and lock her in, for overnight now, because normally she sleeps. She'll just sleep out. She'll sleep out of her crate, and she'll have the hall and the kitchen to run around in, but or move around in. But I mean, it's just you've got to be so careful. We had sort of uh, like the salad, they're wooden, sort of salad servers, and she managed to get them out the draining board and chew them to pieces
Oh my
last
God.
week. So anything that's wooden, she'll chew.
Okay. Well, hang in there just a little longer. All right. So we're here to talk about running.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's January. A lot of people take up running, and now with gyms being closed, more and more people want to go outside. So before we start talking, do you want to give me a little bit of your credentials, what it is you do, your company, yeah, more or less?
Yeah. As far as running is concerned, I mean, as you know, my background is as an osteopath. I suppose I got involved in running from a personal perspective many years ago, and then it's like a typical route. I suffered from a lot of injuries. I got treatments for the injuries I was getting, but I wasn't really making, I suppose, that much headway. I was following the typical pathway of somebody who never stretches and just hammers the tarmac, and you're just picking up little minor niggles every so often. And the other thing was I wasn't really getting anywhere with my running. I was sort of plateauing out really. So one of the things I found to be quite interesting was basically I got an interest in running technique and run coaching, and then I took it a stage further, and I got involved with the running school, which is down in London, and they offer several courses actually. So there's lots of different courses that you can do. You can do a weekend course, or you can do go for the full course, which is what I do, which is like a diploma course. And it actually gives you a qualification as a certified running technique specialist. And it is a long course. There's a lot of hours you have to do, a lot of hours coaching you have to do. And it breaks down the whole idea of running. It breaks down the whole the sort of idea of movement as well, because what it does is it, rather than just the thinking about the typical aspect of, or the traditional way of run coaching, which is basically, you hear about the ideas of telling people to run faster and run harder, which has never worked, because basically we always get injured from that. The running school, their concept is about looking at how people move and getting you moving better before they get you then to move faster. And it appealed to me because through my osteopathy, I treat probably less like a traditional osteopath and more like, I sort of look at the body as a sort of a whole sort of on a holistic pathway, but I also look at how we should be, rather than just treating somebody for the pain, I think about the idea of movement and getting somebody to move, which will then help their overall health. So basically, it's not just about the treatment. It's not just about getting them out of pain. It's about getting them to move more, and that's part of their treatment, their overall treatment.
Yeah.
So with the running, I started the course, the diploma course with the running school, qualified with them, and then since then I've been sort of integrating that into my osteopathy, and I've been offering it as coaching sessions for those people that are already runners, or people that want to run, or people who are injured in running, as well as for people who have issues with walking. A lot of people get pain from walking. I treat the pain first, and then I basically, what I then do is help them move a little bit better.
And where do you do that? Is that near Liverpool?
It's on the Wirral. I've got the clinic, one of the clinics that I've worked at for a long time. We've got a treadmill on site. We've got a large treatment room, so we can basically do. I can do a full body gait analysis, and then a functional movement analysis within the room, and I can also treat them. But it can also be done outside, and I've done it outside as well. Obviously, with COVID restrictions, we've had during lockdown, it was actually easier to get outside. I think it was the early part of the summer, I was outside, and because we can do this outside, you can film somebody and break it down from there and actually look at how they're moving. It doesn't have to be complicated. If you look, there's lots of running, so-called running experts out there, running technique experts out there. But to be honest, it's not something that has to be that, that complicated. And any person at any level can learn something about their running just by getting somebody to film them and having a look at what they're actually doing.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of running. I mean, and it's mainly because I've never done it. I mean, I've always been in sports, so I've always done something which was either a group sport or a personal sport like dancing or in the gym. But now, as as a sports therapist, when I see people running, sometimes I think to myself, "Oh my God." It's like, if only you could see yourself. And I think one of the reasons that I haven't done running, I mean, there's plenty of reasons. One of them being like, sometimes I teach 20 classes a week. But one of the reasons that I never found running safe, and I don't mean like in actual terms, but in my mind, I don't think running is safe. Because of the high impact, because of the long term, the longer periods of exercise. And I've always had that friend who was a runner, and he said, "Oh, I've been running for so many years, and this hurts and that hurts." So, I mean, can running be safe, and how can we define that?
Definitely. I mean, this is one of the, when you talk to beginners or people who want to, I mean, the best market is the couch to 5K. So you've got somebody who, especially nowadays, especially with COVID, you've got somebody who wants to get fitter, wants to move more, because it's all related to, I mean, the benefits of mental health or benefits of running related to mental health are out there, advertised all the time. And you know, in a sense, but then people will come back to you and say, well, we don't, you know, I don't want to run because I've heard it's bad for you, it's bad for your joints. It's not actually the running, it's not the movement, it's the technique that can, it's the technique you're using that can actually that can hurt and give you pain. So in other words, you know, it's like if you have a really nice car but you run it dry, you don't bother putting any oil in it, eventually it's going to die. Your engine is going to die. It's the same as running. You know, if you don't move well, you'll definitely get injured. And I'm sure you find that in, you know, in the classes that you run with your clients.
Definitely, yeah.
Whether it's because they're lifting the wrong way, whether it's because they're just they're not moving their bodies the right way. You know, it can be pain on the knee or something because they're not using their bodies the way they should be doing. And it also comes down to kit. What sort of kit they're using? You know, a lot of people will still run in shoes that are just totally just not suitable. They're not, you know, they should be throwing them out. But they're maybe a 10-year-old shoe that they decide I'm going to do a few miles in them. It's better than nothing, but to be honest, you know, go and buy yourself, you know, the running shoes don't have to be expensive, and you can pick something up that will work. But coming back to your point, running itself isn't bad for you. It's actually, there's so many benefits that outweigh the negatives from it.
Mm-hmm. Great. So, I mean, exactly what you said. So if you think in terms of CrossFit, what we saw in injuries is you had people that have never done exercise before suddenly start doing clean and jerks and snatches, which is like, as you said, it's like trying to go from couch potato to marathon.
Yeah.
In a day. So the injury rate was high. So do you think because we don't think of running as exercise, we kind of think like, oh, I'll just go running. So we don't really think about the technique involved in it. Do you think we just have that mindset that, oh, it's just running, I can just go and do it?
Well, what's very common is if you ask, you know, what I found very difficult initially was when I started doing this was a lot of people, when you talk to people, I remember doing a few workshops and people don't want to know how to run because they can run. It's like walking. So, well, I walk, you know, I run, I can run. I run to the bus stop. Why should I actually pay you to show me how to run? And it's because it's the same as, you know, there's areas of personal training. It's like people think they can lift, but they can't necessarily lift well. That's going to reduce the risk of actually getting an injury. You know, we can break down how you move, and we can help you move better, so it's not painful, so it doesn't cause you an injury or minimizes the risk of injury, and can help you get fitter faster. So, I mean, that's what it comes down to, and it is just about sort of going through a few and you know, tweaking a few things in how they actually move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. So say somebody, I mean, January, I want to start moving, I want to get into running, it's the only thing I can do now. What are the main points that somebody needs to be aware of? I mean, is there some guidance they can get on it, or would you just say start slow?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is if you've never run before, say you have, you know, it depends obviously on the individual. It all comes down to the individual himself. If, you know, or are there other factors? Are they overweight? Do they have a good, like a clean bill of health? Or are there other factors? You know, have they had COVID? It's one of these things. But if someone came to me and said they want to start running, the way I would personally do it is I do a functional, basically a functional movement assessment, which highlights all the weak areas and how they're moving. I also do a treadmill analysis, so that's basically analyzing how they actually walk and how they run. So I break down those movements, and I'm not just looking at the foot or the knee down. I'm actually looking at the whole body, because what happens up here is very important. What happens with your arms actually relates to what's going to happen further down the body, further down the chain anyway. So from there, I would then decide whether we could actually get you, going out for a half-hour sort of run walk, or whether we just start you off with 10 minutes of walking. But for the majority of people, it would be just get you out every day, just walking, just basically start you walking. Because if you think about what people have been used to, pre-COVID, was jumping in the cars and driving to work, sitting around for 12 hours or 10 hours, adapting, their postures adapted to that. And then if they want to get out to, they want to start running, they've got to start thinking actually of changing that or adapting that posture again. Because the problem is their posture's getting, getting to a point that they are used to being, this sort of slumped over a desk or slumped behind a wheel as they're driving. And then to suddenly start running, when you've got to start thinking, well, what are your breathing mechanics doing? What are the lungs doing? Are they having a chance to actually open up the chest when they're running? There's lots of, I suppose, minor injuries related to that because they aren't actually using, they aren't using the lungs properly. They aren't opening up the chest. And you'll see that with runners as well. You'll see that sort of that shuffle as they go past you, or as they run along beside you. But these things we can change quite quickly. So going back to your point, I think for me, my perspective, I would get them walking. And if they're quite fit, I would do a sort of a walk-run program for them.
Okay.
But that's if they could move well. If they couldn't move well, I would highlight the areas that need focused on. And it may be the fact that there's a posterior chain issue. So it could be the glutes aren't activating at the right time. And what's happening is they may be more of a over dominant on the anterior dominant. So they're using their quads too much. And then what we do is actually start focusing on relevant exercises to change all that.
How easy or difficult is it to have somebody, and the reason I'm asking is mainly the reason why I quit personal training and why I don't like it. So somebody comes to you and they say, I want to start running. And then you say, we have to activate your glutes and we have to stretch your thoracic spine because you can't breathe properly. I mean, how do people take it? Because I mean, they would come to me like this and they were like, I want to do an overhead squat. And you have to say like, look, we really need to get some things done before you can actually get into position. So how do you find people reacting to corrections or suggestions?
The process itself works quite well because we're using the use of video works really well. You video them on that first day. So you're showing them, you're looking at them and assessing them on as they are. And then you break it down, you take it back to basics. So in a sense, take it back to basics and say, okay, I want you to try this exercise for the first week, every day for the first week. Now that could be that exercise maybe just to stimulate the nervous system. If you stimulate the nervous system, you're going to change what's going on already. So you're actually starting, the body will start to change because the brain's starting to learn and it's learning how you want to move. And that's the sort of thing that we can give them rather than just focusing on actually what they're doing running out there. It can change that. When they come back in a week later, we can film them again and see if there's any changes. And it's the changes they can then accept, because yes, you're going to get people that think, the real stubborn ones that think it's not going. How are you going to change my running? And it's not about changing it; it's just about tweaking it. If things like there's all this stuff in the media about if you're a heel striker or a forefoot runner or a midfoot, runner. You've got to go with what's comfortable with you. If you are, are a heel striker and you always have been, and your aim is just to get faster, then we will keep you as a heel striker. We may try and get you to be more of a midfoot striker if we can, but for a lot of people, that's not going to work. So we just keep you there where it's comfortable. We're not going to change it. We're going to tweak it slightly and just help you just maybe change it or tweak it. So it's going to be more of an efficient cycle. But yes, you always get one or two that will say, no, it's not working, or obviously it's, I don't think it can be done. But the ones that come back to me and they've done I remember I had one before COVID, and she was basically training for her. It was a 10K and hadn't been able to do a 10K. And then she emailed me just to say that she'd entered this. So we basically planned to enter a race, and she'd entered a race, a 10K race, and did it. and she smashed it. Great. You know, it was like,
Yeah.
so happy she smashed it. And that makes, you know, that makes me happy, because we've achieved something through that, through training her, through basically working with her, changing her mechanics as such, of her, or her running mechanics, so that basically it's more efficient. She's not getting the pain she was getting originally when she was running 5K. She's breathing a lot better, and overall the whole efficiency has improved.
What's the most common pain that people say? I mean, I've always had, not me, I've heard from people about calves and Achilles.
Yeah.
During running, what would be the most common pain that you hear? Some even told me they get a headache or upper back pain.
Well, it's an open book, because it depends on what style of runner they are, to be honest. I mean, you could have, well, let's start with the feet then. So you'll get some people, calf, the calf and the Achilles is, you know, if they run on their toes all the time, okay, so you're basically, it's that posterior chain, so that's going to be, you can be tightening up that posterior chain. But the other side of it is, it can be the Achilles, if their stride length is too long, the Achilles can be getting, and they're actually using they pronate. Not everybody pronates, but if there's a lot of pronation and they've got a bit of an instability issue through the ankle, then yes, the Achilles could be the issue, could be the problem. But you've got to look all the way up the chain, because we do get a lot of knees and ITBs. Now, ITB is related to overtraining. So basically, the typical one is the marathon. You know, you've got London Marathon was the most obvious one, because you always saw this increase in training, because you could download, any runner or any person, any potential London Marathon runner can download a 20-week plan off the internet. Doesn't cost them anything. They can get hold of this 20-week plan. So they start running 20 weeks down, they start putting it into place, then realize they're behind, and then have to pick up the mileage again. And as soon as they do that, their ITB flares up. And basically, and then they start getting back pain as well. If they're anterior dominant, what you tend to see is back pain, and it can be knee pain as well, but you get a lot of hip flexor issues kicking off. Lower back, if they've got again, it can be just due to postural. They're trying to sort of hold themselves up too much, or they're too erect. They're basically too upright. So it's a total open book that there isn't. I don't think there is the one most common injury, because you see lots of different injuries related to it.
Have you seen the what I found in gyms before they closed? I mean, I think it's been the last couple of years, and where you get these treadmills that are more natural treadmills.
Yeah.
How have you tried them?
Oh yes, yeah, and a great one. They are very good, and they certainly work you. The idea being is it's your gait that basically will speed it up. And I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I have used it, and it's self-propelled basically. And it has
I think Technogym calls them the skill treadmill or something, right. But it's the one where it's not mechanically generated, but you're the one who's giving the speed.
Yeah.
Not, and they look like
it's like a banana shape.
A banana shape, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they are very good. They, for your own workout as such, if you want to trip for your own training, I think they're very good. They're brilliant, because it's not like there is research into the use of treadmills and how it affects your gait, and injuries that are related, or problems that are related to the use of treadmills. Now, these will be different, because you're using a more natural gait with that one.
Yeah. Great. So when I was back in Holland, January was like the sports month, and people would go out, they would buy like headbands, armbands for their phones, all this expensive clothing, and then be done with it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And never go back to running. So I mean, what would you say is essential equipment for running? What would you have with you?
I think I mean, you just got to start with the basics. So, you know, if we talk about shoes, you know, I've got some here. I mean, you need either it depends where you're going. If you're going to be running on the road, you go for a sort of a nice, a comfortable road shoe that's going to give you a little bit of support if you need it, or cushioning is if that's what you require. If you're going off-road, like trail, which is my preference, then you need something that's going to give that's also going to give you that traction and that grip. So the trail shoe, this is actually my ones are wet and very muddy, so I've got sort of a new pair here, which are still in the box. So that's the lugs, which basically the lugs can go in different directions depending on what type of shoe they are or what brand they are. But it's just the lugs are very deep. So I mean, I would say the thing is you don't have to spend a lot on shoes. You know, there's shops out there that are doing real basic ones. And if you're just starting your running, great, you can pick up a decent pair of shoes as long as it's comfortable. Comfortable and not too heavy. Socks I would say is the next thing. You do need some sort of I would say I would spend a little bit of money on a pair of running socks. There's two. I'll show you the type that I use. So basically sock is generally ankle height, sort of that one, which is just a normal sort of I don't know what material that one is, but again, it's comfortable and breathable. Or you're going for something like these ones. This is a new brand, but they're made of merino wool. So what you're getting is the warmth and you're getting the comfort as well. And they're very robust. It's Moggins that makes them. It's a new brand, but they're brilliant. They're very comfortable, these ones. And I think these are the things that you sort of need to. So the socks, the shoes, and then anything else, it's normal gym wear really that's comfortable as far as kit. As far as you know, technology, it's like you said yourself, people go out and buy everything and they don't need it. You know, there is a certain side of do we need apps? Do we need to get us running? You don't need an app. You're better off listening to your own breathing and working on actually getting your breathing mechanics click. So, you know, when you're running, you want to think actually to want to listen to your own breathing, which is quite good, as opposed to listening to music. I do both. Sometimes I listen to music. Sometimes I actually just forget music and just go for a run, because I tend to relax more when I'm not listening to music, and I actually enjoy the run more. So there is that side of it.
Is there any benefit in switching shoes now and again? So let's say you wear a certain shoe on Monday and then a certain shoe on Wednesday. I'm just making it up now.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying. I was reading something about a man who it was a forum, and this guy was a runner, and he kept wearing the same pair of shoes, you know, because a shoe will have a lifespan, and it's the EVA that's in the middle, the midsole, this sort of sole here, this tends to compact with time. But the other thing is, if they're very old, they get very firm as well. So there's no cushioning left. And that's the problem. If you've got a pair of trainers that's, you know, sort of several years old, you know, you pull them out the cupboard because you want to start running. What you might find is it hasn't got the cushioning it once had, because that EVA has just stiffened up so much, which can be a bit of an issue. But generally, yes, if you've got a couple of pairs of shoes that you can use, it's definitely worth changing them. So your foot can actually change, your mechanics can change, and you're using different muscle groups as well. So it's not the same pounding action that's happening all at the same time, and it's just variable. You know, it's like if you if you imagine running a track, this track running, you will get injured if you keep running. You know, if you kept running a track, and I would imagine over, and certain people have, you know, several people have done it. If you keep running in one direction,
yeah, I get it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Julian tried it. Journey tried it. He tried to do 24 hours, I think it was, on the track, and you know, he had pre-existing injuries, but he did change actually direction to try and avoid that, but he still ended up injuring his knee and his hip, I think it was. But anyway, that's sidetracking a little bit. So yes, as the answer to that, I would suggest if you have got a couple of pairs of shoes, it's definitely worth switching them.
Cool. And have you got say a warm-up routine, a cool-off routine? You know, do you stretch? Do you not stretch? That's always a big controversy when it comes to.
Yeah. Personally, no, I don't stretch before, but what I do is especially with my clients, what I do is get them doing give them something like which is called it's dynamic movement skills. So you're priming the nervous system, and all it is it's basically quick feet. So you're moving forwards, moving backwards, moving laterally as well, and you're getting everything warmed up. The body's getting warmed up, and the brain's getting switched on. So it's basically it's understanding the way the body wants to move. You can do that for basically, you can do it for 2 minutes, you can do it for 5 minutes before you go for your run, and that does help. As far as my own personal warm up, what I would do is I might do a little bit of that, and then I might just when I go out for a run, I would just do a sort of a slow, basically a slow jog, and making sure I'm sort of warming up fully, and then before I get into my proper running stride.
Cool. So when it comes to, obviously now we're going a little bit into more advanced runners. So say somebody wants to do a half marathon or even a marathon. When it comes to nutrition, what would you suggest would be the best option?
Nutrition is a very personal thing. I think it comes, you know, it's one of these. If they are an experienced runner, they would have probably tried a few things. If I go back to London Marathon is a good example of this, because it's such a big marathon. It's such a huge, it's a huge event, thousands of runners, and they all turn up, and the organizers are always pushing. I think it's Lucozade is one of the big sponsors, and they're always pushing Lucozade down your throat, and it's horrible. It is horrible. You know, it's everything from the Lucozade gels to the drinks. There's no real need for that. There's lots of nutrition out there. The advice I would suggest is basically find what works for you, and start using it. You know, if it's for a half marathon distance, you generally can get away with, for an experienced runner, half marathon distance, you can get away with water, and you might want to use a gel, keep a gel or a couple of gels in your pocket just for if you need them. But find the gel that's good quality. It isn't just full of rubbish, because a lot of those gels out there are just they're full of rubbish. They're not good quality, and it's difficult to say which ones are, which ones aren't. It comes down to doing your own, doing some research and finding out, because a lot of people will say, they love a particular brand but they hate this other one. And I think it's just down to being, you've just got to try it and see how you get on with it.
Well, that's the fitness industry for you in a nutshell.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So, because you talked about the marathon, let's say the London Marathon. So when you do a marathon, do you just keep one pace through the whole thing, or do you just go up and down to kind of maintain? Because I would personally imagine that if you come down, so if you slow down your pace, that's probably going to make you more tired.
Yeah.
Just imagining now. So because every time we used to have that in dancing. So every time we rehearsed, we would go full out, and then you have to stay on the side for 10 minutes till the other team does the rehearsal, and that just kills you. Mm-hmm. It kind of cools you down. So I would imagine if you drop your pace, you kind of get the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much so. And I think this is why, when you do a marathon, or a half marathon, you put in your time. So you basically, when you actually register, or when you apply, I should say, you put in your estimated time. So it could be, anything from, if you're a very fast runner, it could be a 3-hour marathon, right up to 7 hours, 8 hours. So, and then so they then zone you off into your starting pen. The problem is that you'll get some people who reckon they're going to do it in 3:30, and in fact they should be way back in 5 hours. So they go off because of the atmosphere. They get pushed out really quickly in the atmosphere. Everyone's buzzing, everyone's shouting, and it's all, they're clapping, the bands are playing, and it just gets to you. And you go out like a blooming Formula One car, and then after a couple of miles, you're like, what is going on? I've done it myself. I've been there. I've suffered from it. And then, it's like you really rely on your mindset to get you through the rest of it, because you just, after halfway or after 18 miles, you've blown it basically. So the best way if it's running, if you're doing it really well, you're doing a negative split, which basically means you do the first half slower than the second half. You leave enough energy and fuel in your body to actually get you through, and you time it down to every mile. So your pace is basically gradual, and then you've left enough in the tank to take you through that next half faster. And it is possible to do that with the right training. But with a marathon, it's not, when you enter a marathon, it's not about, the hardest part of it itself is actually getting to the start line. It is not doing the 26 miles. Anybody can do the 26 miles. Anybody can walk it. You don't necessarily have to train to do 26 miles. You can walk it. It's feasible for anybody to walk it. They don't have to run it. But the hardest part is the training. So those 20 weeks or 16 weeks, I'd say 16 weeks minimum for most people, to actually to get that training in and get there. And then if you do that correctly, you'll probably find that you can sustain your average speed all the way through. You will slow down. Fatigue gets hold and you do slow down slightly, but not to the point that you're having to walk. But for a lot of first timers, they are going to walk. And even for a lot of experienced runners, as in when I say first timers, I mean first time marathon runners.
Yeah.
But even for the experienced marathon runners, they may just make a mess of their start or halfway through, or their nutrition, which does happen as well. And they find that they've just, they struggle on the latter miles.
Okay. That's that makes sense. So what you're basically saying is conserve energy at the beginning, and then just use that energy later on. Have you heard of fartlek?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I've never heard of that. I just found out that yesterday. One of my clients just sent me that, and she was like, I'm not getting any faster with my fartleks. I was like, what is that? I have no idea. Well, I mean, is that a sort of interval kind of training? And do you find that, for example, interval training, because that's what I know, or fartleks, whatever it is, do you find that gets you running faster, or gives you more stamina?
Yes, but it's got to be done. It can be used, but it's got to be done. It's got to be done correctly. So it's a good way of training. It's interval training basically, but it has to be done. You have to do it correctly, and you have to do it with the rest of the program. So you've got to sort of, you've got to get your mileage in first and build up your endurance base, and then you can start with that. Because in a sense, what you're trying to do is increase your speed, increase your power, so be a better, faster runner. And yes, it does work, but again, it's a drill, so it's drills that should be used maybe once, twice a week, and then basically be implemented at the right time. You can't just depend on it. If you just the other way of doing, that another sort of I suppose the wrong way of doing things is just by running mileage. People that run heavy mileage and just all they're doing is running at one pace, they'll actually be potentially good. Well, they'll be marathon finishers, but they won't be a fast marathon runner. So you do need to mix it up, in other words. Because what's been interesting over the last, say, few years is ultra distance running has become more and more popular. So anything, an ultra is anything over 26 miles. And it's a fascinating race because everything's different. It's not about what time you finish or how long you take. It's just about completing it. So the pace is much slower, unless you're right at the front, unless you're part of the elite ones. The pace is much slower, but it's about getting through it. And some of these ultras are 100 miles. So they're serious. It's serious business, and your body is literally falling to bits. So everything has to be correct. The nutrition has to be on point, but also what's going on, up in here again has to be. So apart from the training, obviously, but you need to be. It's what It's basically mind. Your mind has got to be strong to get you through those miles.
Yeah. It's probably a very important reason on why people don't want to go running without music, because then you come face to face with your own self. You have to be there for an hour with your thoughts kicking in. So it definitely plays a huge role on mental health, and it is a sort of meditation in a way, because you are spending time with yourself with no exterior disturbances.
Yeah, there's lots to focus on, though. I mean, the thing is I'm talking a bit about ultra here, but if you're on an ultra race,
that's a completely different scenario. You have to be. You really need to be aware of your thoughts there, because at some point you just mentally exhausted.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've done a few, and it's the thing about it is that people, if you're relying on music, it doesn't, because the batteries will die. It will not last long enough. So you've got to train without it, and this is where you've got to be able to tap into your thoughts and to tap into its own, this idea of what is pain, and be more positive about that, because it's the ability to keep going. And you will find that's one thing that ultra is very good for, is understanding what your own limits are and being able to push yourself further than you thought possible. So it is a good distance to actually get involved in, even if it's just for the odd race now and again.
I wouldn't do it, but I trust you. I absolutely trust you. I was supposed to do a 10K past last October, the Manchester 10K, but yeah, unfortunately, COVID happened, so I skipped it.
That's an excuse. You could still do it. It's
I know.
Plenty of virtual races, actually. I did London Marathon as a virtual race, and it's these things. There's so many races have gone virtual this year because of COVID, but there's still people. The amount of people running is millions. I mean, I got a figure here just before we came on, and it was something like 2018 to 2019, there was 6.8 million people running at least twice a month in the UK. And that's increased. I don't know what the figures are for sort of this year, but that's definitely increased since then.
I would imagine so. And with gyms being closed, and the weather hasn't been horrible this year. It's been quite nice. So I would imagine that that's definitely increased. And I do make a promise that I'm going to start running.
You should. I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. We'll see. I have a friend, actually, my friend John. He keeps pushing me to start running. He does I think he does anything between 8 to 12 miles a day.
Right.
So, and he's called me out to go running plenty of times, but I think I'm going to start with a smaller distance than that. Definitely.
Yeah. Even
So
the thing
yeah,
is, if you go out and do 5K, 5K won't take you that long because
no,
you're fit. You'll manage that as a achievable distance very, very quickly. Just to go out and enjoy it. But you can't. One thing you got to do is you can't. You have to relax when you are running, and it is just about. I mean, you'll know yourself. You'll know what feels right and what doesn't. But there are certain things. The arm carriage is very important. It has massive implications on what's happening below the arms, basically. So so none of your dancing when you're actually running.
yeah.
That won't work.
Okay, fair enough. I'll keep that in mind. So we talked about intervals and how that, different kind of drills and how it improves your running in general. Would you say that, for example, weightlifting or doing some yoga or some kind of other training couples really well with running?
Yeah, well, this is. I mean, again, I'm really for this now because this was something I didn't do for such a long time, and I have run for a long time now. And you really see the benefits once you start, because the problem is in running, more so in long distance running, is the body does fatigue. And once it starts to fatigue, you've got, if you don't have that strength to basically carry you through the rest of the race, you just really, really suffer. But once you start doing, putting in a bit of resistance training, and you'll find that more and more, sort of running clubs and stuff and athletics clubs are starting to use it. And even in general athletics, actually, their training programs are going more towards the strength and conditioning side as well, because it does really help. What you're doing is just building a solid foundation, and something that you can actually, use whilst you're running. And it's basically, it does help. I tend to get, clients, I basically get them to work on, it's all lightweights or resistance bands. It doesn't have to be heavy, because what you're doing is you're working on your mobility, your agility, and your strength. But it's not about heavy loading, unless there's a necessity for that.
Because I would imagine if you did heavy loading and then you put on more muscle mass as well, then you have more to carry.
Yeah.
Would impact. I mean, obviously it's not the easiest thing to start bulking up, but I'm just saying, more weight would equal to getting more tired.
Well, yes and no. It depends. See, it depends on what the goal is. Is the goal speed? Is it short distance? Is it long distance? Is it endurance? And it's always, with endurance, they always look like hares. They're always the sort of skinny. That traditionally, anyway, that is changing, but it is changing. But that was always the fell runner appearance. It was always sort of, but as I said, it's changing. They're finding, they're getting less injuries from getting into the gym and actually doing more, using a workout that will, using the resistance equipment, the free weight side of it, or the resistance bands, just to give them sort of that sort of, global mobility and strength. So yeah, it definitely helps, and I'm certainly for it as far as getting my clients to work with it.
And since you said the magic M word, mobility, what's your thoughts on stretching? You mentioned do you do dynamic stretches or dynamic drills? You can call them any way you want at the beginning. So how do you use stretching?
I do a lot after, so post run basically. So that would be the main time to do it, I think, for me. And I, as well as far as that's concerned, I also use a lot of the sort of vibration technology. So whether it's a foam roller or I've got a gun here, the vibration guns.
Yeah.
This one's a really good one because it's so small, but it's sort of that size, so it's tiny, and that's great. for just so you know, it works instantly, and it's ideal just for the quads, the hamstrings, and then just doing stretching out using the foam roller, and then just doing stretches, lunges, and then it can follow into just a whole pattern of stretches. Finishing with my back as well, because I personally get issues with my back, so it's a lot about trying to stretch out. But that ties into potentially how, as well as we're talking a little bit about strength and conditioning, I would also suggest something like Pilates or yoga as well, which is very useful.
Okay. Well, I think we've discussed most of the quite a few topics.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's something else you'd like to add, or?
No, I mean, I think we've covered everything really. It's I think the main things, for runners, any runners that are starting, I would just say, it's easy to get straight into, start with walking, build up from there, and think about the arms though. The arms are vitally important. The arms actually help get the glutes working. If your glutes are working, you'll be stable. If they're not firing at the right time, you tend to overuse the other muscle groups, and that's part of the problem, because the glutes are the biggest drivers. We want them working for us. So if you use the arms effectively, in a sort of think of like a train rail track, so forward and backwards motion, because you see far too many, and this really I sort of watch people running and they're doing this sort of sideways motion across their something
like that.
So A, it's slowing them down. B, it's not being effective at all, and it's tiring them. It's tiring them out.
Yeah. I think my worst bit is the one that really gets me is when they have like a valgus knee.
Yeah.
When the knees just cave in all the way and the feet are just flopping side to that really kills me. I just want to stop people and tell them, please don't do that.
Yeah.
That's like my worst thing.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of that is, again, why is it happening? What's firing at the wrong time? I mean, obviously you can have an anatomical issue with that. So that's, therefore they're going to need some sort of form of support maybe to stop their feet dropping in. But you might also get a cycle with the foot coming round, which will cause more of a strain pattern around the knee. And that's where the gait analysis can really help see what's going on and break it down. But people shouldn't be scared of running. It is just movement. If we can sort the movement out, break it down, and really basically redo the hard wiring. So in other words, get the brain to basically help make a more efficient movement pattern, and that comes from doing the right relevant exercises. And I'm not talking sort of with weights here. I'm talking just general body movements. And it's repetitive movements, because that fires basically the memories of the tissue memory. Then we can get them moving better, and then they can start running.
Yeah, well, it is a skill, and it has become a skill through the years, mainly because of as you said, we spend a lot of time seated.
Yeah.
If we were out in the jungle, probably it would be more of a skill that you practiced every day. All right, so amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Good to see you and good to speak to you.
Amazing. I'll put all of your details in the video, so if somebody wants to contact you or anything, they can do that through there.
Yeah.
Have a happy new year further.
Yeah.
And I will definitely see you soon.
All right. Okay. Take
care of yourself.
Bye. Bye.